Hey, what's up? And good evening, everybody. Carpo is a little tired and about ready for bed, but before I do go to bed, I figured I would smoke a bowl and talk about complainers. uh, Complainers. Where do I start? I don't want to complain about complainers. First off, there's bound to be somebody who's going to say, hey, you're complaining about complainers. Because I actually did a video just like this a while back. And I'll tell you something, before I make a video, I always consider the subject matter to see if it's negative. And if it is, then I ask myself, by making a video that's negative or pointing the finger at negative people or something of that nature that seems hypocritical, I ask, what am I going to get out of it? Or rather, what are people going to get out of it? Is this video just going to pick at people, or is it going to make a point? So I want people to know that I do make a point, because I know some of my videos are negative, and it's because I like to cover all the aspects of reality. You know, I'm not going to just sit here and pipe a bunch of bullshit at you and say everything's about spirit and love and meditation and guidance, because it's not. We live in a real world. So, regardless of how we want it to be, what kind of idealistic attitudes we have about life, the fact is that we all live the same, uh, whatever exterior we put on, we all live the same rough internal life figuring out stuff. And so we're all in it together. So when I talk about something that's, pointing the finger, it's because of something that I find detrimental to society that we're allowing to happen. And fucking dog hair everywhere in here. It's giving me allergies, I think. My dog sheds a lot. Anyway, this idea that the types of people that seek out negative attributes in people, and that's all they seem to find. Complainers. Not just complainers in the sense of complaining about things in life, such as the little details, the mundane things. I mean, these are the people that every time you see them, all they can do is complain, or talk about something negative, or, everything's coming to an end, or if the aliens are out there, they're not out to help us, they're out to hurt us, right? If the government's out there passing a law, it's to hold us back, not to help people. That kind of stuff. It's finding the negative in every situation that some people seem to do, and it's frustrating because, I live in a real world. I don't pretend like everything's okay. I realize that we live in a world that has all kinds of issues that need to be dealt with, and we can't just close our eyes to these things. So I'm happy that there's a group of people who are these, not complainers, but freedom fighters, or people who are moving towards a better, freer um, a world for everyone, I guess. Because I know that sometimes it takes a little bit more than just, hope and good fortune. Sometimes we have to work for it, and it takes a little bit of complaining. So I understand that, but as far as the more mundane things in life, we can't change life, What happens is I've found that complaining is a defensive mechanism for people. Because if they're complaining and telling you all about the problems that they have, then you don't have to, you can't attack them for anything in particular. Not that you would, but by doing that, they've put up a wall. It's like the world, don't hurt me because I'm already hurting so much. All these problems are happening to me. And that's not always the reason. There's so many different reasons why people do these things. But let's take for a minute not the people who complain about their life in order to feel sorry for themselves, but those who complain and pick and point about everything everyone else does instead of just doing something or having an opinion or a point. These are the ones who, troll around looking for somebody who seems weak, and then they post a really, basically anyone who posts a comment, let's say on YouTube, that's intending to insinuate that the person is somehow lesser, yet doing it in a disguised way that is almost sociopathic, to where it appears that the person's right. Like, you know what I mean. Trying to act like, well, I wouldn't do this because of this, but you go right ahead kind of thing. Anyway, the passive-aggressive types, and I just don't buy into it, and I don't play the game. I don't, it's great. I've learned so much in my life that's helped me cope. Cope with myself. Cope with others. Because I know that this is my life. This is my chance. Regardless of what happens in the afterlife, in the pre-life, here I am now, and I know that I have to deal with these emotions and this person I am now. And so that's more important to me than anything, because it's what I know, if that makes sense. So a person who figures I can cast everything else aside and complain all I want because I'm religious, let's say. Say I can go out and say kill fags and God hates fags and hold up signs and all this, but say I'm going to heaven. It's because they're so caught up in this afterlife, they're missing this life. That's why people get frustrated at religious groups like that. It's because they're putting energy towards hate and towards complaining about others, because it's their belief that this life isn't as important, which is sad, because this is the life I know, so this is the life I'm going to live to its fullest. And it's my belief that nature's pattern would set it up to where, by living this life to its fullest and being honest with yourself and the world around you, that would suffice to make you ascend any necessary levels of advancement to move into maybe another soul or a heaven or whatever you might want to call it. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant what we think after we die, because not one of us can prove it. Not one of us has any real proof of the afterlife. Not one of us can prove that there's a God. Not one of us can prove Jesus, Muhammad, or Krishna are real. And a lot of people really think that they do. But there's no proof. The book's not proof. And therefore, each person has to take it on faith. And faith is the same in every system of, philosophy or belief. You have to have some degree of faith, because I guess it depends on what you consider empirical evidence. If the Bible is empirical evidence to you, then so be it. For me, the implications that are made by that Bible, let's say, are much stronger than could be believed by something. It's like making a really bold statement and having to back that up because it's a bold statement. And so anyway, I kind of got on a religious tangent now, didn't I? I don't mean to do that. It just comes up because of the way that intolerance that comes from some of these people that think that they're living properly. They're living in the light of nature, in the light of God, and they're not at all, because they're hating other people. And no person who's living in hatred can be living in any sort of a spiritual state whatsoever, because I know it brings unhappiness, and life wants us to be happy. And this is why people think God's a vengeful God. It's because they're angry, so they think God's angry, if that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. There's some people who think God's a loving God, and these are people who are happy. Some people think God's a vengeful God. These are people who have had rougher lives. There's very few people who are happy and having a great life who thinks God's an angry person, angry God. And so anyway, everybody has their different interpretations of what's real, but there's a lot of complaining going on, there's a lot of finger pointing going on, a lot of injustice, a lot of intolerance. And so I can sit and I can tell you, hey, this is what I think is going on in the world, but it doesn't bother me anymore, because it can't, because I have my life to live, one life to live. I enjoy a nice discussion or debate sometimes about religion or politics, but for the most part I walk away from most of the discussions because I have no time for it anymore. I've lost all interest in theosophic debates, religious proving grounds, or complaining about other people, other than complaining about complainers. Anyway, have a great evening, everybody, and hope you all are doing really well.